Hello subscribers, I wanted to give a quick update on my game Fortaeverse. So I wanted to show resistances and just talk about a few of the races. So our first character we're going to look at here is a Bugbear, and their vocation is Myrmidon. And on the first view here, when you view the party member, basically you see an overview and their attributes, which I've talked about before, but I've added another option here to click on, and this shows resistances. So the Bugbear has 20% poison resistance, 10% cold, and 15% disease. And I've decided to show the decimal places here because it can be fractional. And the same goes for skills. In an earlier video I showed it as a whole number, but now I'm showing it as a decimal number so that as you train and work on various skills, you'll be able to see them going up. Otherwise you'd have to wait until it became a whole number. So now let's look at the next character here. We have a female elf alchemist. And elves are actually immune to sleep and charm. So if it reaches a certain level, basically where it's almost impossible for the spell to work, it says immune here. And just to take a quick look at some of the skills that alchemists will have. They have a few weapon skills, but they also have caustic spells where they can get bonus damage using anything of caustic nature, which is acids and bases essentially. They have the ability to create powders, create potions and bombs. And of course they have their main alchemy skill, that's their magic school. And there's a skill called convert composition, which will allow them to convert various chemicals into something else potentially. And I haven't come to the conclusion on how I'm going to handle this, but an example is going to be maybe you can convert water to poison or to acid, or maybe you convert something to an alcohol or something like that. And they can specialize in poison spells as well and get bonuses with those. Okay, let's look at the Trickster next. So this happens to be a male kobold. And kobolds are immune to death attacks. So it doesn't mean they can't die, it just means that anything that does a death type resistance, they're immune to that. And tricksters are an interesting class. They have the ability to create bombs. And, just to kind of let you know what bombs are, it doesn't have to be an attack type thing. It can be like a blinding or irritation type bomb. Think of how wizardry handles those things. But I'll expand on it. It'll go way beyond what wizardry did. They have the disguise ability so that they can, of course, look like something else or someone else. They have some basic weapon skills and legerdemain for doing pickpocketing and stealing and things of that nature. They can detect traps. They can do forgery, which, think of Wasteland, how you can create different IDs and mechanisms in order to forge something, make it look official. A gambling skill, so they can increase their chances of scamming someone and winning. They have the dodging ability, which decreases the chance of being hit, not just by melee attacks, but also ranged a little bit, and even some spells. Any spell that's not an area of effect, you could potentially dodge. And then caltrops. Caltrops are a special type of, I guess you'll just call it a device that you can throw on the ground. And they're basically spikes, and they can stop someone from following you because it'll hurt their feet, damage their feet. But the ability to specialize with these and to throw them at good opportunities and be able to place them for maximum efficiency and to hide them. Okay, so now we'll move on to a female Draken, and this is strange, but I picked a Craftsman as the class just to show you can come up with any combinations you want. But Drakens have 20% acid resistance, and then they have actually natural armor as well. So any type of crush attack, cut attack, or pierce attack, they have a natural armor of 4 against that. And the Craftsman is kind of a generic Craftsman where they have all kinds of different things they can work on. They can create projectiles, armor. They can create bows or crossbows with the fletching skill. Woodworking, which covers all kinds of general wood type things. It could even be making wooden weapons like staves and things of that nature. Weaponsmithing. They have basic weapon skills too. And all of these classes that aren't really geared toward fighting peak out at maybe a skill max of 40 or 60, and it depends on the type of class you are. So even though they do get some generic skills, it can only max out to a certain level. Cobbling, so they can make shoes. Stone carving. Sewing. And leatherworking. So you get to choose how you want to work on these various skills. And I mean, over time you can maximize all of these, but let's say you want to work on cloth type equipment or armor, then you can focus on sewing. Okay, next we'll move on to a male Scorp warrior. So Scorp is like a scorpion man. And they have 25% poison resistance, 35% caustic, and they also have natural armor. In fact, theirs is even higher than the Drakens with 5. And they'll be able to have a poison attack with their tail. I haven't implemented that yet. And here are the skills that I chose for the warrior. Now, the warrior is the most generic fighter you can have. Think of them as a fighter, but they can get any kind of attack skill, and you start with the ability to distribute these points however you want. So you get maximum distribution. So I just put a little bit in all of the skills so that you can see them here. But if you only wanted to focus on maybe 3 skills and like crank up spear weapons, range attack, and throwing attack, you could do that. They also have a pain tolerance ability, which I'll talk about that in the future when I get into more specific skills. But the warrior's the only one that gets that. And they can, specialize with two-handed weapons or simultaneous weapons. They can use shields effectively. And parrying is different than shielding. Parrying means using a weapon to block attacks. And it has to be a type of weapon that you can parry with, like a sword. Like obviously you can't parry with a whip, but that's what that's for. Okay, and then finally we're going to look at a male Minotaur Knight. So Minotaurs are of course these giant bullhead men. So they're 30% resistant to petrify attacks. They're immune to confusion and intoxication at 50%. So you wouldn't want to try to drink against one of them in a bar. They would most likely build out drink you. But intoxication also applies to spells that can, purposely try to intoxicate you and cause you to be disoriented. And so knights specialize with the writing ability. They're the only ones, well, they're not the only ones. They're one of the few that get the writing skill. So they can actually mount like a horse or some other animal and attack from there. And they also can specialize with mail armor and plate armor. And what this does is reduce the agility loss and the movement loss for equipping heavier armor like that. So in my game, armor does impact your ability to move around, which it, obviously should, if you have it equipped. And so the heavier the armor, the more it's going to wear you down. So they have the ability to work with those. And then they can just get some normal type weapon skills. And they start with pretty good equipment. So they'll start with pretty much full armor, although it's bronze, but still, they'll be pretty darn tough to begin with. So that's probably all I'm going to show you today, just to keep it short. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.